So, also during my interview with Howie, we did talk about RussiaGate, and he did say that the media was, kind of running away with it. But he also said that he thought that Trump did collude with Russia, and that it was very clear from the Mueller investigation.
The media is, they're following this RussiaGate thing, which I think is serious. I think Trump ought to be impeached. I think it's obvious he sought collusion. He did collude, him and his son and his son-in-law, and, it's all over that first volume of the Mueller report. It's all over there. I mean, when people say, oh, it showed no collusion. No, it didn't. It says, Mueller says right away, I didn't talk about collusion. I talked about a narrow legal definition of conspiracy. Plus, I can't indict a president, according to this OLC letter in the Justice Department. He just laid out the evidence for prosecutors, which has to be Congress. And so I think that's all serious. But, MSNBC, CNN, Fox, from their different points of view, they're totally obsessed with that. And that's all about getting eyes on their screen to sell their advertising.
Do you think that WikiLeaks was involved in this Russian plot?
I don't know if they were working for Russia. Assange was working for himself. And I have to tell you, him giving the advice to Donald Jr. that you should protest the election if you lose. I mean, he's dealing with the son of a Klansman becoming president, an out-and-out racist who is encouraging, the right wing that's armed to come out and cause mayhem. I mean, those politics are really bad. So, if he ends up going to trial, we may find out more. I don't think he should on this 2010 charge. That's a whistleblower thing. He was a publisher, and he should be defended. But his politics in 2010, trying to give advice to Donald Jr. for the campaign, working with Trump, that's bad. I don't support that at all. I wouldn't, so that'd be my criticism of Julian Assange. Now, how much he speaks for the whole WikiLeaks organization? Probably does, because one of his defenses was that was on WikiLeaks, not him personally, but pretty much everybody understands it was him. And whether that was with the Russians, that I think is not documented. There's circumstantial evidence. Like, well, where are the WikiLeaks about, Putin? That's the Panama Papers. A lot of stuff came out about Putin and his wealth there. So that remains to be seen if he was working with the Russians or just biased with them. We'll see. I'm not sure. But he should not be prosecuted for publishing the leaks from Bradley Manning, or what's he call himself? Chelsea.
And this kind of surprised me just because, seeing what happened to you and what happened to the Green Party and this new McCarthyism that seems very apparent, especially among progressives, it seemed as though Howie had a very different take on that, and he had more of a mainstream sort of approach that there definitely was collusion and that this was a provable fact. I don't know if you saw that interview, if you had any thoughts on just if the Green Party should be nominating somebody who is essentially adopting the RussiaGate narrative.
So I've talked to Howie about this at great length, and actually I owe him a briefing paper because, and I just, it makes me very sad that people in the Green Party who should know better are vulnerable to this kind of, warmongering and propaganda. And, it takes, I think it takes some degree of information and, skepticism to be able to reject this stuff. It should not be taken at face value. When James Clapper says to Congress, that no, we are not and never have been, surveilling the American public, or when all of the security agencies are raving about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, how many times do you have to go through this? Or the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, that initiated the war in Vietnam. How many of these things do you have to go through before you start not taking statements of our security agencies at face value? They may be right, but they may be wrong, and you really need to look at corroborating evidence. And unfortunately, there's been such a media, orgy around Mueller, around RussiaGate, around all the hysteria that gets way blown out of proportion, and then they never publish the retractions when the stories turn out to be fake.
Right.
To my mind, it's very sad when people who should know better are falling for this stuff.
So what did Howie say about it when you talked to him?
He pulled back a bit, quite a bit, and said that he really looked forward to that discussion. I had to dig deep, because I was being accused.
Yeah, well, you're the victim of it.
Well, and let me say, I knew right away that the Steele report was a bunch of crap because it had lies about me. It said that my trip to Russia was paid for by Russia, and that was part of how they co-opted me. That's part of how they engaged me. And the Steele report said that Russia's strategy was to engage people like me and third parties, and that it had been successful in doing things like sponsoring my trip to Russia. So I knew that it was full of BS. So if it was lying about me, what else was it lying about? So I was not inclined whatsoever to take it at face value, or the intelligence agency's report. And it really distressed me that people who know me and who were informed about our campaign could see that and then not just, presume that this fear campaign is BS. So this is, I think enough people have talked to Howie that he's starting to see this differently. And he seems to feel that, well, he's just being skeptical about authoritarians. Well, that's true. You should be skeptical about authoritarians, but that includes, the authoritarians here in the US of A and the kinds of, warmongering and abuse that's taking place here, which in the words of Martin Luther King, we are bar none, the greatest purveyor of violence the world has ever known. And that should inform your thinking about this. So I think, I talked to Howie about new knowledge and about, the way the whole social media campaign is ridiculous.